gentleman on the other screen is the executive director of the Miami Design Preservation League, who we invited to join us today because it's the 100th anniversary of the creation of Art Deco. So, hi, George. I've known
Wow,
you for over 30 years, and
it's
over
true.
that time, we worked together in various civic issues. But to be perfectly honest, I really don't know anything about your background. So, let's start with a few easy questions. Who is George Neary?
Well, first of all, I was born in Connecticut. I was a history major in high school. So I want that link to begin because I end up being very historic, so to speak, with the Preservation League. And then I went to school in New Hampshire, Manchester, and was involved in the 1968 campaign. And then from there, I went in the Peace Corps. And I lived overseas in the island of St. Vincent near Grenada and Barbados. And I spent 3 years teaching school, working community development, and a wonderful, wonderful experience in Kingstown, the capital.
By being in the Peace Corps at that age, what did you learn about yourself?
Well, you learn, about giving, about sharing.
So, how did you end up on South Beach?
Well, I lived from there. I went to New York and I worked in New York City, and I worked in student exchange and teacher exchange. So I was working with the American Field Service. And a friend of mine decided to buy a building on South Beach. She was going to live there. So she thought she could just work there, but it was very tough. There were no jobs, there was nothing going on. So she decided to still stay in DC, and she invited me. I was living in New York. I was a little disenchanted. I had seen South Beach. I'd been there a few times to visit her. So I packed up everything, quit my job, and drove to Miami Beach, as we called it. I started volunteering in this little organization called the Miami Design Preservation League. And my first friend was Nancy Liebman, and my second friend was Matty Bauer. Never did I realize I would be in placed with such powerhouses. Both of them have streets named after them in Miami Beach today. But in those days, they were just hardworking women trying to use the skills they learned in PTA to save Miami Beach's historic global architecture, which is celebrating the anniversary you described.
Well, before we even get into that, one of the perks of living on South Beach in the 80s and the 90s is we all got to know the right people. And
Right.
as a result, we found ourselves invited to some of the most over-the-top parties, a new condo, a dance club, a high-profile restaurant, a celebrity promotion. What was the most memorable over-the-top party you went to?
Well, I want to put it this way. I was extremely fortunate to make the intimate acquaintance of the Skull Sisters. So the Skull Sisters, Heidi and Sahara, two over the top
Yeah.
entrepreneur artists from Cuba who made three-dimensional work, and no party was complete without them and their son. And so we went everywhere. And of course, when I walked in with them on my arm, velvet ropes dropped, doors opened, because everyone in those days wanted Heidi and Sahara to be a part of the scene. So I mean, it was a time I would go to the Delano way back in the early days, and Madonna would sit behind me. No, people just didn't have bodyguards and all that posse paraphernalia. They were just there, and they would have parties on Miami Beach with Ingrid Casares and so many others. And we were just, I had my head above water because I was head of the Preservation League. So people would invite me. So I was the chief spokesman for preservation and for Art Deco. And because of that, like yourself, because you were entrepreneurs and bon vivants, um, we were all invited to everything because in those days there was a lot of everything, but not a lot of people here. There was just this wonderful cadre that we were a part of and we're still a part of. It's a very small town and everyone knew each other.
That was just such a great time. But now let's talk Art Deco. This
Right.
is the 100th anniversary of the creation of the genre. Explain to me what that means.
there are various movements that happen in the world. Some of them are brought on by World's Fairs. The Design World's Fair, and it was brought together in 1925 in Paris. Paris invited various countries to have a pavilion, a building of their own. So there was 35 countries with their own pavilions, and each one of them was showcasing this modern or modern artistic movement called artistique décorative, art deco. It's a French expression, and it was premiered at this conference of new design. And so people came from all over the world to see fashion, jewelry, paintings, design, architecture. So you walked in and you saw the French pavilion. You walked in, you saw the Austrian pavilion. You walked in another building, and on and on and on. And so it captured the imagination of the world, and people were joined together to promote this modern architecture.
There's a saying down here that everything that happens in the world has a Miami connection.
Right.
What's the Miami Art Deco connection to what
Well,
you've
you have
just
to
been talking
understand what
about?
was happening in America at that time. For the first time in human history, because of the Ford Motor Company and building automobiles, people had to leave the farms, which America was an agrarian society, and were moving to the cities to make money so they could buy things. This is a new phenomenon in the world. And so people are moving to the technological centers to do the assembly line because you need people for that. And that's going to revolutionize work and everything that follows. But what happens is you get 2 weeks vacation when you work 52 weeks a year. So where are you going to spend that vacation? So Miami Beach was created as a response to the rising middle class who were now making disposable income and disposable time. So Miami Beach was cleared of mangroves and it was a swamp, and it was now thought to create a vacation paradise for middle class people. And so they got their inspiration from Paris because they did not want to create old country things. They wanted something new and modern. And the architects that are famous at Miami Beach got all their excitement from the architecture they saw and the design they saw in Paris at the conference on artistic decorative. We became a vacation paradise, and we created places for people to come spend their money and their time.
What's in the future for George Neary?
I'm on a number of boards. I'm going to be traveling to Paris for the 100th anniversary of Art Deco celebration. We've been working with the Art Deco Alive volunteers, and it's celebrating Mumbai and all their Art Deco, which has been shockingly amazing because I wasn't that aware of the depth of architecture in Mumbai and in Bombay. So I have those things to look forward to, and then we'll see what develops. So there's just many ways to give back, to honor the past, to preserve the Art Deco buildings, and I'll always be in the middle of that waving the preservation flag.
George, I love your enthusiasm. I appreciate what you've done for the city. So thank you for being George Neary.
Kisses and hugs, and I'll see you, I'm sure, at the next event.